than the traditional one about polar shifts, what causes them, but it sounds like you're saying the effect's about the same.
Yeah, as the moon moves out to its farthest distance, the moon itself turns over, and then when it comes back in, as the Earth's off-center core dissipates and then realigns itself and picks up another little seed from the moon's gravity and the sun's gravity.
All right, look, we're way short on time here. You wanted to ask something about UFOs. What were you going to ask?
Okay, the UFO flap that we have going on now are two different species of UFO aliens that have been on the Earth, one for 2.2 billion years, the other for 1.2 billion years.
All right, sir, we're going to hold it there. And when we come back, this is exactly what we're going to talk about. Whether they are, in fact, you know, from out there, or maybe from up there, or you've got to consider the possibility, at least, from, you know, down there. Stewart Best is my guest, and we'll be right back. To lose, but the pain. Do you believe in coincidence, synchronicity? Listen to this. Headline, quake rocks Palm Springs area. Friday, May 14th. A magnitude 5.0 shook the desert near Palm Springs early today. No immediate reports of damage or injuries from the aftershock to a deadly earlier trembler. The earthquake happened at 12:54 a.m., 19 miles northeast of Palm Springs. Saturday, May 15th, headline, Mexican volcano again spews ash. Officials have warned that the volcano of fire in western Mexico will likely have a larger eruption after the mountain rumbled and spewed ash 7,200 feet above its crater. Date, May 16th. Headline, earthquake reported off Indonesia. Hong Kong, AP. An earthquake with an estimated magnitude of 6.2 struck off eastern Indonesia early Monday. 6.2. Here's another one. Quake hits Papua New Guinea coast. Date, May 16th, 1999. An earthquake with an estimated magnitude of 7 struck off the coast of Papua New Guinea early Sunday. This last Sunday. Or how about this? Quake shakes central New Zealand. Date, May 18th, 1999. Associated Press. An earthquake with a magnitude of 6.3 rattled central New Zealand on Tuesday evening. No damage or casualties in that one. We're talking about a span of just a few days. Interesting, huh, Stuart?
Yes, very.
Yes, indeed.
You can expect it to increase.
UFOs, Stuart. I saw one. Lots of people, millions of Americans have seen them. What do you think they are?
Well, I guess I think they are, for the most part of the delusion that the Lord said he was going to cast down, and they are interdimensional travelers, and they are from the satanic side. And I base that upon some of the comments that are made in the scriptures. If you go back into Genesis chapter 6, it talks about how these angels came down, saw that the daughters of men were really beautiful, cohabited with them, and bore a race of giants. Now, the Lord said that as it was in the days of Noah, so it would be again as the end of the age approached.
So put simply, you think they're demonic?
They are the return of the fallen angels, yes.
It's every bit as good a theory as any other. You know, because we can't, it's one of those things you can't quite put your finger on. You have a million reports. You have a ton of anecdotal evidence, very little physical evidence, but by God, there's sure something, maybe that's the wrong way to put it. There's something going on out there, for sure, and your explanation is as reasonable as visitors from impossible light years away.
Well, it's very interesting when you get into the ancient literature, like the Book of Enoch. He talks about how these beings, these fallen angels, were numerous in appearance, They came in many shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
All right, now, in the scriptures, in Genesis, it says that mankind was created out of the hand of the Most High God, the God who created time,
Right.
space, energy, matter,
Everything
spirit,
that
life.
is. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, these beings are created angels out of his hand, so they're called sons of God, but they went over to the other side. And the book of Enoch is very interesting in how it lays it all out, because if that book is correct in its analysis, we would then, at the end of the age, which we are now getting into,
Right.
if we're not well into it, which I think we probably are, there would be then a return of these fallen angels posing as extraterrestrials coming in many different forms. Why would they do that?
Bingo. You see, I think your explanation is every bit as reasonable as the scientists, the theoretical physicists who come on my program frequently and talk about the Big Bang and how it all began and everything came from something smaller than a little bitty quark, which we're not even sure about right now. And I can't wrap my mind around that one. Haven't been able to yet. I tell them all. And then I ask them, well, what was before that? And they say, I don't know. That's what they say, I don't know.
Yeah, well, from the biblical perspective, God is outside of time and space. He actually created space and time and put the universe within it. At least that's what he says.
Well, there had to be something. There had to be a couple of objects to reference to each other. Before that, there could not have been time or even reality as we now know it to be. I've got a lot of phone calls, so we'd better go to those.
Okay.
First-time caller line, you're on the air with Stewart Best. Hi.
How you doing?
All right. Where are you?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
And I was listening to Mr. Best talk about the polar shift.
Yes.
And I'm a physicist. And I started crunching the numbers.
Okay.
And for this polar shift to take place, we're talking about the atmosphere going one way and the Earth going the other direction.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, right?
The Earth weighs 6.59 times 10 to the 21st power tons.
Okay.
That's 21 zeros out towards the end.
It's almost like our budget.
You get it zipping around at about, I don't know exactly how fast it rotates, but you're talking about something in the order of about 3¼ times 10 to the 41 joules of energy. You can't stop that, even if you were to shift the pole, the insides of the Earth. If they were to flip sides completely, I don't see how it could stop. Talking about a tremendous amount of weight.
Well, I don't know as it stops its rotation. What the Old Testament talks about is that it topples and then it wobbles like a top back and forth until it regains an equilibrium. As to its rotation, it doesn't really say whether it stops or slows down or what.
Yeah, in other words, the laws of kinetic energy you're talking about are not violated. There simply is a change in as he pointed out, a wobble and then a change. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but in any case, in order to move the Earth at all, you're still talking about a force that, it would take an absolute universal cataclysm.
Well, that's what you get, though. And that even mainstream science now says that these polar shifts have occurred.
Oh, I believe the polar shifts magnetic polar shifts. I believe that's occurred because I've seen magnetic maps of the Earth, and there are bits and pieces. When there's a great concentration of North Pole magnetism at the northern pole of the Earth.
And it's moving around, by the way.
Yeah, and it's splotchy right around the equator. It shifts, and it does. I've seen documented evidence that that the magnetic poles will shift.
Well, one of the most popular theories now is that the magnetic field essentially goes to zero, and that there is then some sort of sun flare. And I think you would agree that with no magnetic field, a flare or a ejecta could have some pretty serious consequences for us.
It could if there wasn't a great deal of atmosphere in between us. in between those. Even though a solar flare is immensely powerful, it would have a hard time doing a great deal of
Sir,
damage.
have you heard the recent reports of the large ejectas that we've had that have, according to scientists, been depressing our atmosphere?
I believe it. I mean, I don't see any reason why it couldn't happen, but not to the degree where it would kill half of the planet or melt this half of the planet, whatever space.
Then how do you account, excuse me for taking your case, Stuart, but what about the woolly mammoths with the undigested plants in their little bellies, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, if a woolly mammoth dies after it eats...
Instantly frozen, sir. In an area where there was vegetation and now there's nothing but thousands of feet of ice. I mean, that...
Well, I mean, if a woolly mammoth were walking along, were to stumble, were to fall into a great deal of water, something which it couldn't easily escape, it would gradually lose body heat. It would start to, its metabolism would start to slow down, and it would not digest that food.
Okay.
It wouldn't be an instantaneous death, but it wouldn't have time. It wouldn't be able to digest whatever happened.
All right, but now the woolly mammoth is in thousands of feet of ice.
Right.
Where there was vegetation. Now that indicates it was a fairly dramatic change.
Right. Well, dramatic, yes. Instant, probably not.
All right, well, look, I appreciate the call. Most of the people, Stuart, like yourself, that I've talked to with regard to how fast a polar shift occurs, have said anything from hours to a day to maybe days at the most.
Yes, it would. All the evidence, all the ancient literatures claim it's very fast. It's like the times of Peleg. The word Peleg means earthquake. And the scriptures say that in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. All the nations that we know now today were formed at that point in time. Now, that's a gigantic, cataclysmic change.
Well, I'll say. All right, wildcard line, you're on the air with Stuart Best. Hi.
Hi, Art. It's Greg in El Cajon.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
Fine.
Good. Stuart, nice to speak to you.
Nice, thank you.
Stuart, I have two questions for you, if I might. The first is a question about a statement you made just a little while ago. Correct me if I make any mistakes in what you actually quoted, but you had said something that our school systems in the United States were attempting to separate our children from us and basically denounce our beliefs and values as parents. Could you add a little bit more to that? Because I thought that was a pretty frightening statement.
Well, there are several classes that are being taught to our kids. We got into death education. They're made to lay in graves, write their obituaries. They have what they call values clarification, which essentially is no values.
What grade level is that being taught at?
It's been, from every book I can get of the people that have studied it, it starts virtually from kindergarten and goes all the way up through high school.
Yeah, because our kids are, well, they're young. I mean, they're in first and second grade ending these years, and we're very involved in their school activities and what's taught at school, and we do help out at school as well at times. And I have never run across anything like that, and that's why
I've got to admit I haven't either.
Not once, and I've never heard a teacher ever utter anything that I would feel where they would trying to separate my child from me. Because, Stuart, if that were the case, my kids would be homeschooled for the rest of their life until they got through with the 12th grade.
On the other hand, my friend, I hate to tell you this, but there's a lot of parents who are pulling their kids out of school and homeschooling them for that exact reason, so you might want to look into it. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been in the school system, so...
There is something wrong with the public schools, and you have to remember that in order to bring in this new world order with this whole different paradigm set of values, you have to then slowly change the children's values, and you do it over a long period of time. However, some of these books have some really astounding quotes from some of the educators. And I'm not sure it's going on in all the schools or that all the teachers are involved in it. But overall, there is an alienation process that's developing. Almost every parent that I've talked to, the kids are getting rebellious. They don't want to obey parents. Now, there's part of that, of course, is just growing up.
Look, it's undeniable. No, there's been a change, Stuart, a real change, since when I was a child, and I know everybody probably aging says this kind of thing, but it's true. There's a profound change in too many of today's young people, not all by far, but too many.
Mm-hmm.
That's undeniable. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stewart Best. Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I seem to be all right.
Great. My name is Desmond, and I'm calling from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, listening to you on News Talk 1230, WCBC.
That's the way to do it.
All right. First of all, I'd like to ask a question to Stuart. How are you, Stuart?
Fine.
Great. I would like to ask, you made reference earlier to giants.
Yes.
And can you go into a little bit about that? And I'd like to ask several questions and make,
I don't know if we have time for several, but giants, that was the mating of the Nephilim and with Our Ladies, right?
Yes. Well, actually...
or that was the Nephilim.
That was the Nephilim, was the product.
Yeah.
The Nephilim simply means fallen ones.
Fallen angels mating with Our Ladies, Earth girls.
And that is not only found in the Scripture, it's found in the Book of Enoch, and it's even found in Josephus, who was an ancient historian about 2,000 years ago. He writes about it.
Next question.
Well, this is not a question. It's going to be a comment. What I'd like to say is that there are strange similarities between prophecies in Islam and Christianity. First of all, there was a prophecy made by the Prophet Muhammad that there would be numerous earthquakes to increase as time ends. There will be numerous landslides, those predicted to be in the east, the west, and the south.
Mm-hmm.
And after this, I find this very amazing. You talked about an Indian woman, No Eyes, I think that was the name, who prophesied a green haze. In the Islamic religion, it is prophesied that there will become, during the end of time, a smoke.
Really?
Yes.
Same thing.
And there will be a smoke which would engulf the people. Now, the biggest of this, which I find extremely amazing, is that when you talked about the giant, there's a prophecy in which the Prophet Muhammad prophesies that when the word is fulfilled, or the truth is fulfilled against people, God will produce a beast from the earth.
Caller?
Yes.
Caller, can you hold on?
Sure.
I really do want to cover this, so both of you hold on. We're at the bottom of the hour, and when we come back, we'll talk about the similarities in the predictions of the Christian world and those in the Bible versus those of Islam. 2 days ago. Kind of a rough rap for somebody who just had a major heart attack, but that did occur. Back now to Stewart Best and my caller, who obviously is a follower of Islam. Is that correct?
Correct.
I had a feeling. All right, so in Islamic teachings, there will be a smoke. Is that correct?
Correct. This smoke will be as a product of the people's disobedience towards God and their involvement in the worldly life. And after this, there will be numerous signs. And before this, there will be numerous signs. But I think that the sign that sticks out the most is this beast, which will, like I said, it will be produced from the earth, which will speak to the people, and it will inform the people if they are truly a believer of God or in God or not.
Well, I'll tell you, that sure does sound like what Stewart Best is saying to me. Stewart?
Yes, there's very many similarities between the major prophecies of the world religions. It's very interesting that they all seem to come together, too, at about the approximate time.
Same time. Exactly right. Thank you very much, caller. Exactly right. At the same time, then, Stewart, why then should we presume or egotistically suggest, even through our belief systems, that we have the only true path?
Well, I guess the only thing you can do is take the scriptural admonitions on it. Jesus Christ was very emphatic.
I know.
That he was the Son of God.
I know.
And so a human being, I guess, from all over the earth has to make up their mind whether that statement is true or whether that statement is false. It's like the
Boy,
statement.
that's such a rough road, though. I mean,
yes, it is.
it's like this way or no way, my way or no way, and yet here we have these other major religions saying virtually the same thing.
Well, I think the human race is very, very subconsciously aware that the time of the end is approaching.
That I agree with.
And they may not even know that. Unbelievers of anything are restless. And I think they sense that something is in the air and that major changes are coming.
Oh, you bet. Even people who are just generally, what's the right word, spiritual, but not specifically religious, generally spiritual, they're feeling the same thing, Stuart.
Yes.
I've got a fax here from Australia. My good friend who says he's feeling better, Stan.
Oh, Stan, yes.
You know Stan.
Yes.
It says, Art, he actually calls me Artichoke. I don't know why he does that. He says, ask our friend Stuart to explain the role of Satan and the fallen angels in the UFO deception.
Okay, we kind of got off that a little bit, but basically, the fallen angels present themselves to mankind in many different forms, and what that does is prove that evolution was true because they evolved differently from all these different planets, and that the creation story in Genesis is false. It's an untrue statement. And therefore, because mankind evolved, there was no fall of mankind. We're merely evolving upwards, and we will eventually engage into godhood status and move out into the cosmos. That is like Satan saying, yea, hath God said. And we come back to that sort of, I can see where the human race might think that God's statements are quite arrogant. But he does make those statements. I am the only God. There is no other God. I created the heavens. I created the earth. I made the heavens as a tent. I made energy, spirit, life. And then he says, I sent my son to rescue mankind out of the dilemma of the fall. Now, mankind can either accept it or they can reject it. I mean, Jesus didn't come down here with two Uzis strapped to his side and grenade launchers.
Thankfully.
He said, he just presented his case. In fact, it's very strange. The Bible does not attempt to prove that God is or that Satan is. It just simply makes these statements as factual. And then God's position is because man rejected the Scriptures, they bring upon themselves their own destruction. Now, that's a hard message. It really is.
That sure is.
That's what it says.
That's the message. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, take it or leave it.
That's right. All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stewart Best and Art Bell. Good morning.
Hi, Art. How you doing?
Well, I'm fine.
Good. Hey, this is Tim from Phoenix.
Yes, Tim.
And I've been deeply involved in researching, biblical prophecies and prophecies of Nostradamus. I particularly got caught up in the books that are out on the subject of Nostradamus some time ago.
Sure.
And I'm a skeptic. I want to believe. I'm like Agent Mulder, from the X-Files.
Why do you want to believe? I mean, if you want to believe in the prophecy of Nostradamus, if you want to believe in the prophecy of Christ and the Bible, then you're believing as Stewart is believing, and it's just about time to rock and roll if you believe. So why do you want to believe?
Well, I disagree with you on that because in Matthew 24, and I think your guest is familiar with that chapter.
I'm sure.
He talks about the end of the age. And he says all this bad stuff will happen, and then these are the beginning of the birth pangs.
Right.
Not death pangs, birth pangs.
Right, quickening.
Right, yes. Exactly.
Yeah, but the part you skip over when you say that is there are presently about 6 billion human beings on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And before you get to the birth pangs, before you get to the birth part, there's going to be an awful lot of death.
I think he was referring back to the days when Rome had the evil of Rome, the empire, the evil empire.
I don't think so. Stewart?
No, I would not agree with that either. Most of these prophecies are, in fact, future, or well, we're in some of them right now. But there's a difference between the end of the age and like AD 70. I know there are a lot of people who think that these all terminated in AD 70, but you can easily disprove that just by the language that's used.
Can I get at my question about the Nostradamus?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I was studying Nostradamus, so first I went to the most scholarly works, and there's only two good scholars on the subject, one from out of Oxford and one from out of Harvard.
Somewhat subjective, but all right.
All right. And I read their commentaries on the subject of Nostradamus.
Right.
And I just have to say, I saw such an incredible pattern of disinformation.
Oh?
Yeah. Now, it makes me wonder if there is some kind of a global conspiracy, and if it is an occultic conspiracy, if they might have latched onto these words from 500 years ago from this guy as some kind of roadmap to the future. What's your take on the subject, Stu?
Well, there's no question that the biblical aspect of it, that there is a conspiracy. It's headed up actually by Satan. When you use the word conspiracy, you have to be a little careful as to what you mean by that. But the Bible teaches that there is a conspirator, a chief conspirator, and he uses human dupes to bring about his world order because he wants to take the place of Christ. Essentially, that's what you have. You have a war between Jesus Christ and Satan as to who is going to rule over planet Earth.
Sounds like another episode of South Park.
It's a deadly battle. And many human lives are going to be destroyed over this.
Well, that's the part that I have a hard time just sort of glossing over, saying, oh, yeah, a little rough period, and then things will be better. But the little rough period means billions of people who are here won't be.
Oh, yes. The Scripture is very clear that there are few men left after the polar shift. Men are as rare as fine gold is the way it's worded. Well, fine gold is pretty rare. So are you going to go from 6 billion down to, I don't know, but it'd be well under 1 million probably.
Uh-huh. That's the part that so many gloss over. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Stewart Best. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, hello there.
Yes, good morning. This is Sandra. I'm calling from northwestern Pennsylvania.
Glad to have you.
Thank you so very much. Stewart, a couple of things. Number one, I'm deeply grateful for the truth that you're bringing out here, and would like to speak with you a little bit about the deceptive hologram being projected with regard to the coming of the Messiah.
Yes, Project Bluebeam.
Project Bluebeam, that's exactly right. Prior to that, as you well know, Christians are expecting the rapture to take place before the actual second coming of the Messiah. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would agree that the vast majority of Christians are expecting it, but I do not agree with that.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
yes,
you don't?
There are a couple of viewpoints on that.
No cosmic vacuum cleaner for the Christians, huh?
I believe that the Christians are going to be here through a good part of the tribulation period. The only thing that the Bible says that we are exempt from is the wrath of God himself. And the reason the Christian is exempt from it is because you don't kill your own people, so to speak.
So basically this Jubilee stuff is a bunch of wishful thinking.
I believe the way they're teaching it, they call it the pre-tribulational rapture. I don't think you can support it from Scripture. No, I don't. Okay.
I happen to tend to agree with that, too. But basically, I've written a book called Y2K, WHY2K question mark, and it correlates the UFOs with the event of the computer chaos of Y2K. And Art, I did send you a copy of this book.
Good book title. Great way to get your plug in.
Well, okay. Basically, what this book puts forth is that the UFOs UFOs are going to put forth a counterfeit rapture.
I would agree with that from different sources I have read.
Yep.
There would be no better way to bring the world together than to rapture out the religious leaders from all over the world and the political leaders and then bring them back.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what this puts forth.
Well, I say take them and leave them out. All right. Well, I certainly appreciate your call, man. Thank you. Yeah, leave them out there. Who wants them back anyway? Wildcard line, you're on the air with Stewart Best. Hi.
Hello, I'm John from Canada.
Hello, John. What part of Canada?
Ontario.
All right, because that's a big place.
Yeah. I got a question and a comment. The comment is that, you know that Cambrian event, that
Oh, yes.
the pole axis of rotation shifted? Those scientists who did that, they said that took between 10 and 50 million years. So it wasn't rapid in any sense other than geological.
Well, there is, of course, some controversy about how long it took.
Yeah,
But yes, but you're right. The mainstream folks believe that.
That's because most geologists belong to that uniform, theory, that things take forever. But actually the scriptures and most of your ancient literature, not scriptures either, teach cataclysmic change with long periods of stability.
After all, sir, how many times have you heard me read an AP or UPI story say, scientists previously believed, however, today they now have found out that, in other words, what was yesterday's science seems to become today's truth. It was untrue yesterday, it's true today.
Yeah, sure, but claims like your guests have made require geologic processes to occur hundreds of millions to billions of times faster than they are observed today, and you really,
well, if it was,
I can't believe that.
Yeah,
That's
but if it was as slow as you suggest, then you're going to have to tell me where the woolly mammoth and all the rest of this sort of thing, where there was vegetation, where it was tropical, and then suddenly it was ice.
Oh, Art, there's no scientific literature over the last 30 years where they've looked at these mammoths where it says that the vegetation was tropical. What it says is that you had Arctic-type plants in the stomach of these animals.
Arctic-type plants?
I don't know where this claim is coming from. I've heard creationists make this argument about buttercups being inside, but they fail to point out that there are a number of species of buttercups, and some of them are Arctic plants, meaning the plants that grow in the Arctic. These are what you find in the stomach of these animals. Now, certainly the climate was warmer, 15,000 years ago.
If they had to have been. I mean, you don't get buttercups at 100 below.
Well, you do have, in the Arctic, you do have flowers growing. I've been in the Arctic and seen them.
It happens, but it's
no,
it happens toward the shore, only toward the shore areas where there's a melt, just barely a melt.
Yeah, but in the scientific literature, the stomachs of these animals, over the last 30 years that these have been done, there is no claim in any of this literature of the plants being tropical. The plants in the stomach of these animals has been said to be Arctic plants. So I don't understand why this keeps coming up.
Well, it keeps coming up because scientists keep finding it.
Yeah, but
they don't say Arctic plants. They say what were tropical plants.
There is no papers that say that.
Well,
That's
yes,
the problem. It's a myth. That's a myth. There's no papers that say that.
Okay, all right. Well, let's let Stuart take that on. Is that a myth, Stuart?
I don't believe it is, and of course, the concept of cataclysmic change, I think, is going to be proven within the next 10 years, and I got a feeling that scientists are going to be scratching their heads as we enter in these next 2 or 3 years even. They're already scratching their heads over the weather.
I know.
Which is minor.
I'm waiting for, it's obvious to everybody that there is a profound weather change underway, but none of the scientists have yet come forward with the guts to say that.
That's right. They don't know why it's happening.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen soon, though. Mark my words. Somebody with the cojones is going to step forward and finally say what's happening.
Yes.
The world.
We hope so, anyway.
Listen, if somebody were to start with Stewart Best and want to read something or watch a videotape that would be your favorite first choice, what would it be?
It would depend. Iron Mountain Blueprint for Tyranny was an excellent one, but that's more on the political.
Uh-huh.
If they're into more of the enigmas, the Atlantis Chronicles would be a good one. If they're into UFOs, definitely UFOs Gateway to Hell is an excellent video. Not just because we made it, but because
that title.
It's a deep probe video. And we also post a lot of literature on our website. We have a pretty big website, and they can visit that and check things out.
What is your website? God, I was supposed to ask you hours ago.
It's www.true, T-R-U, without the E, insight, INSIGHT.com.
Okay, .com. We will get a link up immediately. God, I should have done that a long time ago. That's www.true, T-R-U, inside, INSIGHT.com, right?
Right. They can call us at 1-800-257-2672.
All right. Can you afford to stay around for another hour?
Sure.
All right. Then it's done. Hold on. Stay right there. A guy dials his home, and a strange woman answers. Who is this? This is the maid, answers the woman. We don't have a maid, says the man. Woman says, look, I was hired this morning by the lady of the house. The man says, well, this is her husband. Is she there? The woman replies, she's upstairs in bed with someone who, well, I figured was her husband. By now, the guy is really fuming. So he says to the maid, listen, how'd you like to make $50,000? The maid says, what do I have to do? The man tells her, well, I want you to go and get my gun from the desk and shoot her and the jerk that she's with. Sound of the phone being put down by the maid. The man hears footsteps and then 2 gunshots. The maid comes back to the phone. What do I do with the bodies? Says she. The man says, throw them in the swimming pool. Puzzled, the maid answers, but you don't have a pool. After a long, very long pause, the man says, this is 832-4821, isn't it?
Five-star hotel room, only at Priceline.com. I told you naming your own price at Priceline.com would be big, really big.
Really big, too. Stewart, there was a beginning of time.
Yes.
I believe this, whether you want to talk to the scientists who talk about the Big Bang and all that, or you want to talk to people like yourself who, no doubt, believe in creation as described in the Bible. Mm-hmm. There was a beginning of everything, of what we are, who we are, what's here, and time.
Yes.
Could there be an end to time, Stuart?
Oh, definitely. Eternity in the Scripture is not endless time. It's the absence of time. It's a whole new dimension.
The absence of time.
Yes. You're transported out of time-space into an eternal future, which is without time. In fact, it's very interesting if you read some of the near-death experiences where they've gone to heaven or claim they have gone to heaven, that they claim that the music, for example, has no beat to it because there's no time. It's very, very strange. Our concepts of time, of course, are probably not entirely accurate.
You want to expand on that a little bit? Not entirely. In what sense?
Well, this is hard to explain, but the way I look at it, you have, let's say you have a wagon wheel, and the rim is time, and in the center is the hub, which is eternity. Now, the Lord makes a comment that whom he foreknew, he predestinated to go back to be with him. The only way you can understand that is that by being in eternity, he can transverse time. He sees all of it, from the beginning of it to the end.
Well, we're coming up here on the end of our tape and the ability to put any more on it. unfortunately. We are constrained by 2 hours. But anyway, think about what we said back in 1999. Compare it to today. Was it fairly accurate? And if it was, not because of me, it's because of the Lord. Thanks for listening.